3, 2, 1.
Honestly, I started before 3.
Okay.
In my head. This is very unstructured. Like, there is no 3. What is 3, 2, 1?
They're numbers, a way of measuring.
Dude, I got a book on the number 0, and the number 0 was responsible for people murdering each other because the concept of 0 was so controversial to people's beliefs that they were murdering each other. They had to like settle what 0 meant. Everyone can agree on 1.
Wow.
Right, but we take these things for granted. But what's 0?
Well, okay, so what was the premise for somebody killing? Give me an example of like somebody killing somebody over 0.
I need to reread it again, but the basic premise is what is 0? It's something, but it represents nothing. Like that's the you know what I mean? Like 1, at least, dude, 1 bottle. But what's 0? You know what I mean? And it's like your whole structure is based on that. And that's a hell of a way to start a show. What is the name of the show?
What was that?
We go downhill from there.
And you said that was a book, right?
Yeah, it's called 0. It's called 0.
How many pages was the book?
It was a decent amount. It was a paperback. Yeah, exactly. What page does it start on? But it's like, I want to say paperback, 200 pages. It wasn't a super long read, but it wasn't like super short. I didn't read it though. I'll be I don't want to be one of those people that are like, oh, no. I didn't read it. I have the book. I read the summary on it. I've been meaning to read the book, but the summary broke it down how throughout history, and especially the early stages when we were getting more organized as human beings, people would go to war over the word 0. So now
it's funny because even when you say that, I would say that 0 is essentially nothing. Like in the world of numbers, I don't think you necessarily need 0.
Well, that's the point though. But here's the thing: in the world of numbers, but numbers connect to reality.
Right, because if you look at the creation of the universe, what was at the beginning? Well, 0, nothing. Right, and then so science would say,
yeah, but you didn't call it 0 though.
No, well, there was nothing there. Right, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and it was formless and empty. Like there was nothing there, and then He said, "Let there be light." So there was nothing. But, science would say, the universe from nothing created something, right? But it was 0 first.
Do they say nothing, though? Okay. Do they say from nothing something was created?
Well,
they say it's from something different than what we experience, and then that created what we call reality.
Okay, can you explain that? Make sure I have that clear in my head.
Okay, so let me back up for a second. So the reason why, this is one point I do remember from the book, 0 makes negative possible.
Okay.
And don't ask me to break that down because I'll be talking out of my ass. But I think that somehow makes sense. It's like the bridge between something and nothing has to get to 0. Otherwise, if you go from 1 to, how do you get to -1?
Yeah.
But this gets real challenging. So I think
are we about to go to war over
before
this?
not necessarily, but
Ruben's gonna get mad at us
with 0 being there, right? So it's funny that you said the bridge to negative. So I wouldn't even have gone towards the bridge because I liked it right where from nothing comes something, right? So when I think of this, and even as I was just saying that 0 wasn't there. If we bring it down to essentially computer coding, right?
Yep.
It all was 0s and 1s.
Yes.
At the beginning. 0s and 1s, that's what started the barcode, essentially. That's like the first computer language.
Well, zeros and ones represent something, though. Electrical impulses.
Yes.
The positive or absence of either the presence or absence of an electrical impulse.
Okay, so the absence of it would be 0, and the presence is 1.
To my understanding, yes.
And that makes perfect sense.
Yep.
And so
on and off digital, that's the whole, right? 1 0 0. It's all kind of the same thing. Yep.
And so on that, I can see that why 0 is significant, right? Not necessarily for the bridge to negative, but being the nothingness that something is created out of, the absence of.
Yeah, because that's one of the elements of everything in the universe is space. Space is nothing.
It's the absence of.
The absence of. But for matter to fill up something, it needs to be in the absence of something. It needs to be like this room is empty so that matter can occupy the empty space. So then you have space, matter. These are just the elements of like the fabric of the material universe. You need nothing first, and then you need the material world, or the energy that coalesces and creates, matter as we know it, like this table.
Is space nothing though?
As
It
far
is
as
the
we know,
absence.
Yeah, no,
space,
yeah.
Space is the absence of.
the absence of matter.
And here's what's fascinating about that. I think depending on what we have technology wise, you can keep going deeper, right? You can probably keep, there's different layers to see what space,
this
right?
is where we get into like metaphysics.
Yeah,
And
which- yeah,
I
and,
have no knowledge of. But
Yeah.
if you ever watch Neil deGrasse,
Oh, right.
he'll bring you right down that path.
Yeah.
But that's why, because when you said the bridge,
Yeah.
right? So because we first went with the absence of, and then you brought up where God, like in the creation of the universe. How I can now interpret this and then go into a negative is the absence. So there's the ones and everything above. That would be, let's say, the space that we know. That's the known space, right?
Okay.
The planets, the stars, the stuff we know. The zero would have to be those black holes. On the other side of that black hole is the negative.
Oh, like
I can see how it works metaphorically, but we don't know what's on the other side of the black hole, right? Like
And that's why it's the negative.
because of the lack of our knowledge.
So the unknown,
works.
the zero,
Hey, that's
the
good right
unknown
there.
and the zero is essentially the black hole, right?
Okay.
Technically, if I'm on the other side of the black hole, it's a whole nother universe, and it's one on that side. But because I'm on this side looking through the window or the pane, that's the black hole, I'm looking through it. On the other side is
Yes.
negative because that's what I do not know. So this is the positive, this is the ones, the twos. The window
I got
of
it.
itself is the zero.
Yep.
The bridge that you mentioned. Everything on the other side would then be the negative.
Okay, so dude,
But
that's
if I switch sides, then that is the positive.
Yeah.
It's still zero, and this would be the negative.
well. What if okay? So, dude, I'm glad you said that because
Perception.
I'm totally out of my league because you painted a great picture there. I was gonna say, what if there's an alternate version of you that's existing simultaneously and it sees you as the negative?
There
and you
is.
can't, and it's not you going over there. It's another you
Looking at me
at
here.
you, and you know what I mean. And y'all-
Reflection.
Yeah, dude. And there's a concept I really want to talk about on here at some point, which is the shadow, which is like facing yourself and dealing. Are you familiar with shadow work, like Jungian?
Break it down for us.
Okay, so basically, yeah. So
For the
this is something
viewers that aren't-
yeah,
that
yeah,
are-
yeah. So
unknown.
I'm going through it again, but there's a really great book. I listened to an audio by a lady who passed away. Her name is Debbie, and I forget her last name, but it's called Dark Side of the Light Chasers, and it's based on shadow work. And it's basically, the concept's pretty simple, which is that every human being has a part of themselves that they don't like. It's just, I don't like this part of me. I don't want to. So what the tendency is to suppress that and push it away. Right, it's like to all smiles, and Instagram is the perfect representation of people putting out the light, right?
Yeah.
But behind it's a lot of darkness, and really, what I think a lot of psychiatrists who believe in personal growth are stress, or what the ideal is a trajectory of integration between dark and light. But is a whole other subject, but I don't think we live in a culture that embraces that at all. In fact, I think we celebrate. In fact, the whole concept of canceling someone is you saw a little bit of their darkness, all of you's gone.
Yeah. Oh,
You know what I mean?
I remember he schooled me on this whole shadow work thing. I think the book would say, correct me if I'm wrong, that person who's trying to shut down or cancel that person who sees that shadow in that other person is really because it's reflecting the shadow that they
Bingo.
have in them.
That's it.
that
It's-
they've been suppressing.
And it's so, dude, it's hard work, because really what it is that thing about a person that drives you crazy. Really what this theory is that's all about you.
Yeah.
So basically, Dark Side of Light Chasers, basically I would go to someone and I would say, so-and-so did this and they said this or whatever. And I would, in the drama in my head, I would expect that person to go like, man, that's messed up, blah, blah. Or I'd ask them, how would you have responded? And a lot of times, to people I respect, I see how they operate in the world, they do really well. Their response was opposite of what I did. And I saw that enough to be like, fuck, it's me.
Yeah.
And I hate that because it's uncomfortable. It means I don't know something. It means I don't, like, you know what I mean? It's like, and it's like, it can be something like and it's typically like a trait that someone has or something. So my point is that when I started doing this work, and I stopped because I can always feel myself devolving if I stop doing the work. What happens is when you face those traits in yourself, you look within yourself and you find those traits, what happens is it kind of melts away. And it's funny, and this happens all the time. That person will stop doing the thing that annoys you. Now, whether they actually stop or whether it just kind of equals out, like temperatures match, so you don't even notice the temperature anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's what happens with shadow work. But here's the funny thing, and it's so easy to point out now: the greater the difference, like the less the work a person does, everybody's wrong but them. To me, that's like the definition of the extreme side of immaturity.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll be honest, right now I feel like I'm going through a stage of immaturity. I'll be very real, like, you know what I mean? Petty arguments in my head. Like, that's just kind of where I'm at right now. You know what I mean? I smoke a lot of weed to deal with it. I drink some beers, but I am like, I got these arguments and I'm right. And I know I'm not fucking right. And it fucks with me.
You know what's funny about what you're saying? I think we're all facing that.
Okay.
That same immaturity. But you actually admit it. So like you're facing your shadow, right? So if somebody would look at you and say, yeah, how could you be that way? How could you be so immature? It's because they've been stifling that dark side in them, or they thought they've overcome it, a couple years ago, a couple months ago. And then I think the people who are the most judgmental, I see this in the church a lot, is the most judgmental people have the most skeletons in the closet.
1,000%.
The people who clear out their closet just say, hey, I tend to have these fake arguments in my head with people.
Yep.
That's my shadow. I'm going to be less likely to judge someone else. I'll be more gracious. So that kind of leads me to why we're here, this whole identity thing. I think for me, Christianity helped adjust my identity in that I don't have to hide the dark side, because in the Lord, He accepts me at my lowest moment.
Okay.
Right? At my lowest moment, I find like God gave me the greatest gift. From my experience with the Lord, He gave me His Son, right? At my most sinful, quote unquote, moment, He gave me the greatest blessing. So from that foundation, I could feel accepted at my darkest. So He loves me in my darkest moments. That's where I experienced the most great graciousness from Him. How could I not extend a little bit of grace to my brother here, to my sister here, when I see their dark side? So, that's how it helped me, with my identity. I don't have to hide the dark side from myself, from other people.
So with the shadow stuff, piggybacking off what you said, and like being able to be like, okay, I don't like this about that person or that person, and it's a reflection of my shadows. Based on like my experience within, even like through college and stuff like that, so my friends used to pick on me for being Mr. Nice Guy.
Okay.
And it wasn't that. I do know I was even Mr. Nice Guy to a fault, right? To the point where I should have let my dark side out more. And I think like how you're saying you're trying to get more in the light or whatever. I think
I want to integrate you, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, even integration. I think that's kind of where I'm at now, where I'm letting my dark side shine a little bit more.
I agree.
And how I'm going to piggyback this, right? So even just like my friends, right? So sometimes even the way they interact with each other, that can start a fight, or sometimes it's not the nicest thing to say to a girl or whatever. And I'd be like, almost like a cringe factor type stuff. But if that's really what you thinking with your first mind, sometimes you do just need to say it. And so like sometimes with me, like I would bite my tongue because either it's not the nicest thing to say, or that's going to lead to confrontation and things like that, where it's like, okay, let me hold back. I don't need to say it and just let this situation blow over or whatever. But then what I end up doing is I'm almost hurting myself. Because in the sense where I'm not letting my true self shine, because I'm biting my tongue and filtering my own mind and not saying what I really want to say. And of course, just like liquor confidence or whatever, sometimes when I did have liquor in me at a party or whatever, like I could lash out at somebody or say something with no care.
That's my forte, bro.
And being able to say it to them and knowing like, even if it makes you cry and boo-hoo, that's not my problem. Because my problem, it probably would have made me cry if I kept it in. So I need to let that out. So like, as far as like finding that bridge between your light and dark. So the easiest way to explain that is the yin yang and the circle.
Sure. Yep.
It's the balance of the light and the darkness. And in the dark, there's a little glimpse of light. And in the light, there's a little glimpse of darkness. Yeah. And if you can encompass them both, I think that can help you walk the world the way you want to walk.
I think with that though, if I picture the yin yang, I picture it as liquid in two buckets sloshing around. And just to bring it to what we were talking about off camera, everyone's talking about the Will Smith thing, blah 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 blah. But I think Will Smith as a brand, he represents the light, right? From his music to his life. I think a lot of people would agree that his brand is definitely not dark. He's right.
Concur.
And so that whole thing, whether it was staged or whether it was totally legit or whatever, it was definitely a dark. The action was dark, right? Regardless of what side you take, right? Slapping somebody is like not the prettiest thing, right? So my point is that it's not constant. Like that's the trippy part, and like you know what I mean. Like it's not constant, and sometimes darkness gets activated. Like we're on the verge of World War III. Anyway, I want to say something real fast. 'Cause I want to get this out there. Speaking of not biting your tongue, I think we talked about identity, and we were going to connect it to narrative control, right? Narrative being that narrative controls the whole story that identity operates in. And when you mentioned power, I'm going to say this. It's a good power move, and I'm not saying this intentional, but I think you'll appreciate this. When we talked about zero and going from positive to neutral to negative, you said, well, we know God made the universe, and we know this, and we know that. It was like assuming it, and then it's like, hey, we're starting from here, and I would be like, dude, I don't believe that. So I'm not even.
There was two reasons why I said that. One is like, because that's how I feel it to be real.
Yeah.
And then two, leaving it open for someone to say, no, it's not that way. Because I kind of I wanted to go down that road too, like kind of let those two kind of clash a little bit.
So while we're on it, because he did mention because that was as far as power, that definitely influenced the conversation to go where's God in the numbers, and he doesn't believe in it. And then when you said it, I was thinking in my head, I was like, okay, I agree, but I don't think he agrees.
Yeah, I was thinking, I was like, wait,
With that being said, if it's zero and there's no God,
I didn't say there was no God.
Oh, okay.
I just don't believe in the hey, God made this, made 6 days, rested on the seventh day, Adam and Eve.
So you don't believe, so you believe there's a God, you just don't believe that he made it.
So I'll say this. That
she made it.
You know that. Yeah, no, I'm not going down that road. God's it's a masculine image to me. But here's how my belief is right now. You know that Mario Kart. You know that that's cube that constantly changes shapes until you grab it. I'm like that every day. Anyway, like it's cut. Like I don't have one set thing with it. But I will say this: I've tried being a Christian legit like 4 times, have failed every time. It just does not. I don't digest it well at all.
Here's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
There is no Christian on this planet since Christ who has ever not had that experience with Christianity.
But I don't even like it. In fact, I'll be honest, like it actually the whole storyline at this point, because I've tried it so many times, it doesn't connect with me at all.
That's fine. We could go back to the creation thing. So on the flip side of an intelligent designer, I think we can all agree on that language, an intelligent designer to the universe.
I think there's definitely something, yes.
Something.
And I've connected with it, whatever you want to call it, flow, vibe, God. And I have no problem saying God,
Because zeros and ones, we talk about zeros and ones in a computer. Well, somebody had to put those zeros and ones. No one would assume that those zeros and ones came together by chance, by accident.
Okay, got it.
Because it implies, like this cup here implies a creator to the cup, and it's not very sophisticated.
Yeah, I think I think where we split ways on that is on chaos, because where you and I get into, I think, really good heated arguments on this is I go with the classic: why do bad things happen to good people?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's my
question.
thing,
like,
right?
What do you do with that?
Yeah. Now at the same time, though, I'm not going to sit here and say that I haven't felt plugged into and guided by some higher force that to me is like, dude, I feel like I'm on point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're somewhere in there.
Cool. All right. So the creation of the universe.
He set me up. He's good. I like it. Where are you going with this? Where are the walls?
The creation of the universe was either created by an intelligent designer who intentionally, like this phone, somebody put it together. There's evidence of an intelligent designer to the cell phone, or like what science, from what I understand of the Big Bang theory is, there was nothing, and then it exploded. There was nothing, and then it exploded, and then we have.
Well, they didn't say there's nothing. There's the universe, and there's like all the stuff in the universe.
The Big Bang. I'm talking about the Big Bang theory.
Yeah, no, I know.
So there was nothing, and then it exploded.
It literally says nothing.
I don't know what. Well, they talk about the Big Bang, like with Hubble.
So technically, this is how I interpret it. The Big Bang is the separation of atoms, like a nuclear bomb, and so in the Big Bang theory, it's essentially nothing, but it's an atom that's so small. But when it separates, that's what made the bang.
Yeah, but an atom is the smallest component of the material world as we know it, like this table.
So it's still something.
Something. So apparently, or they have no answer for it. So
they have no answer for it. And that's why I find fault in that.
Sure.
Only thing I want to steer away from, and this is just my personal opinion, which I think would help us, because I think it was awesome when each one of us has admitted so far something we don't know something about. At this, like in one conversation, that's so rare.
Yeah.
I know of the Big Bang Theory from past, but it's been so long, I'm not well versed on it. It sounds like the three of us aren't super experienced on it, but I'd rather go back and forth on just where we split off, because I know exactly what I'm saying. I know you have something. Does that make sense? As opposed to a theory from the scientists that we don't. So, but I don't want to steal. If you're going to say something, I don't want to take that away.
No, it's just that. Okay, so if there was nothing before the Big, or they don't know, well, then where did that atom come from? It just doesn't make any logical sense for atoms to coalesce and make something intelligent. For example, one of the basic laws of science is this, the laws of thermodynamics.
Okay.
Like the second law of thermodynamics, everything goes from order to chaos, not from chaos to order. Entropy, they call it entropy.
Okay.
So entropy, all schools of science adopt entropy except biology.
Are you trying to get to the point that there's are you trying to argue that there's an intelligent creator?
That's it.
I agree with you.
That's it.
Okay, so we can check that box off.
Yes.
So I think where you and I divert though is, and this is where I'm in the gray area, is I think of it more as I forget the name of the theory, but it's basically like the watchmaker, right? God winds up the clock. Like he puts the earth together, winds it up, and he sets it off, and whatever it does, it does. The challenge I have is that there's just things that I personally have experienced. Again, that's anecdotal, where I can't tell. I'm not an atheist, right? I believe there's a God. But I don't go down the line of like Jesus and he said this and therefore it's this and it's this.
So you don't believe the book?
No, I don't think it's black and white. Totally dismiss it. But But just to take one example of a Christian who's like, no, this is the word and this all happened and it happened in this order and this is the way it is. No, I don't. And if it does, I'm like, well, damn, you got a lot of stuff in there you got to account for, you know.
So in that sense, because I grew up I was raised in a household that went to church.
Sure.
Throughout my college, once I didn't have to go to church anymore, I didn't. I went through college. I went through that point where I did question and then go through disbelief and then question again. And that was actually while I'm attending a HBCU. So it's a historically black
Which one
Catholic
you go to again?
College. Xavier University.
Oh, yeah, we went to Xavier. Yeah, we went to the same school. Okay, yeah, that's right.
So at
Catholic
Xavier,
school.
I learned between my AFAM teacher and my theology teacher.
Who was your AFAM teacher?
Dr. Doris.
Dr. Doris. No shit. Okay, small world.
Yeah, but he probably slept with her.
It was a guy.
Oh,
and it's funny, bro. That's a small world, man. Yeah.
And then in theology, I had Professor Batten, who was there for just a time period.
Okay.
And then I had Father Linden.
Okay.
Who is a priest. Mm-hmm. Now, Father Linden was great at teaching because he didn't teach with the aspects of like we believe in God. He taught in the sense of here's all the information, and he'd ask the questions to challenge or even make statements to challenge our thinking, to the point even some of us in class would question, yo, is this Father Linden actually like talking this type of...
That's strong, man.
Yeah,
that's strong,
does he believe in God the way he's challenging us to think? But those of us that have those conversations with him outside of class would start to realize what he was doing. And I was one of them. So with this, all that coming to this part, right? So you don't believe in the book as how it's laid out, like how a Christian would say, this is the word, the only word, the word of God is what there is when there was nothing else. Right?
And I'll say specific. I'll keep it short because to me it's a very the traditional Christian has a very digital argument, a very 1 and 0 argument. If you're either on this side you're right or you're wrong, and in the heaven and hell.
And I agree. I agree. So like throughout my understanding of God and holiness, and this is where people would say religion and spirituality based. So in this case, maybe I'm more so spiritual than religious because I understand the book in it of everything it says. But for instance, my father, Seventh-day Adventist, would say, you read the word, you don't interpret it. It is what it is. You take it in its literal form. I believe that's a fault
Yeah.
Because you can take it in its literal, physical, what it says, but there's also, just like any other story, there's the underlying tone and the metaphors to it as well.
Yeah,
and I think that's what he's missing in that book, because if you can understand that there's a God without necessarily believing what the book says verbatim, if you read the same stories, which is what I've done now, and throughout, like in the church, and then being on the outside reading it, I now see what the book is explaining of the world. The factors in the universe of the world are written within this book.
Sure.
Wait, I want to. So that's what but here's the cool thing about having to not being so. Well, I'll just say it. I think there's wisdom. I know there's wisdom in the Bible, but there's a lot of wisdom in a lot of different books. But there's a lot of ridiculous shit in the Bible that's hilarious. Like a dude rolling up with a bag of foreskins.
Okay, but what he left out of the equation was there's a lot of weird stuff in all these other books.
Well, it depends on which one you're talking about.
I mean, the way I look at it,
Joel Osteen's Every Day's a Friday. Nothing ridiculous in there. Fabulous.
I'm not
book.
saying. Hey, you said there's ridiculous things in the Bible for sure.
Yes.
And
I gave an example, the foreskin thing.
No, sure. But when
what
I was
makes that ridiculous?
No, hold on.
Okay.
1 second. So before I understood what a clown was, when I was 3, I was petrified of it. This is ridiculous. And then when I grew up, I found out, oh, that's what a clown is. Now I have a new understanding of a clown. When I first experienced a clown, it was ridiculous. There's a lot of ridiculous things in the Bible. If you don't understand it, it's going to be ridiculous. It's just, I find it interesting that when you framed it up, that you said, hey, there's a lot of wisdom in the Bible, and there's a lot of wisdom out there, but there's a lot of ridiculous things in the Bible.
Yes.
But
there's a lot of ridiculous things
out there.
1,000%.
Okay,
so we're all on the same page.
Okay, cool.
But absolutely.
That means so the Bible encompasses the world. Because the world is built with ridiculousness and wisdom.
I know, but let me be very. Because we're speaking vaguely here, so let me just break it down.
And I feel like we're bombarding you with this.
No, it's fine. It's fine. First Testament. Because I was just recently, because I was working for a carpenter when I was trying to be a born again Christian or whatever over the summer. I was working for a carpenter who's a.
Oh, it was that recent.
Oh yeah, and that's like my fourth go, and my fourth go at it. But and this dude, very impressive. I told you, he's actually a carpenter, and. He wasn't a perfect guy, but overall he was a good guy. I will say that. He taught me carpentry and he could recite any verse. So I started listening again, Old Testament. And if you listen to the instructions that God gives in the Old Testament versus what goes on New, this dude, if it was a person, you'd be like, he makes Hitler look like, dude, wiping out kids, wiping out children. And I'll be specific. Telling someone specifically to go and do something, and if they don't do it, then they get wiped out. Right, like these are all happening. David versus Goliath. It was David, right? David killed a bunch of Philistines and bought like 400 or 4. How many? I forget the number. It was a lot.
Yeah,
but it's
took the
foreskins and brought it to the king to prove that whatever. But then still, like it's. Let me zoom out for a second to say this because I want to be very clear.
I think that was a great warrior tactic. You're thinking it's crazy, but I'm like,
there was a whole story behind that.
I know, but
there was.
I want to say this because I want to put this in context on where I legit stand.
Okay.
I believe that there is very real practical value in someone's faith. I've seen it. I've seen people go through horrible things and where they believe, right? And I've seen that where they get their faith from this book, right? So I'm not trying to say the book is bad. I'm not doing an all or nothing thing. I'm just saying for me to actually believe it and live like that, my brain's like, dude, stop.
You can't make that leap in your life.
And then when I read the Satanic Bible,
it's really hard to do it.
And I read the Satanic Bible. Have you ever read the Satanic Bible?
No.
So yeah,
I've heard of it though.
Yeah, and so for a long time, I think terrified. I was like, oh man, I don't want to mess with that. Even when I'm not a Christian, I don't want to mess with the Satanic Bible. One day I was like, you know what? Fuck it, let me try it. And there's stuff in there that's ridiculous, especially when we get to the ceremony stuff. But the first third, it's a short paperback. It was written in like the 60s.
I was gonna say you read the whole thing.
Yeah, it's not like a biblical thing. It's like 100. It's like 200 pages or whatever. But it's basically a guy's philosophy. It's one guy.
Yeah, I've heard of it and whatnot.
And when he's saying stuff about the logic of how humans are in life, like it's just like one of the people like that makes sense. That like it was clicking for me. I'm not a Satanist, and if I was, I'd have no problem saying it. But I'm not. But I'm just saying that dude makes sense. If you compare him to a typical preacher, that dude's logic will be way more practical to me than a preacher.
Now, the reason why, so 2 things on that is one, he might be speaking in a logical, he written the book with logic. I don't think the Bible's written in pure logic. That's why I said it's partially literal and it's partially metaphorical. Like you got to be able to read between the lines.
But people go to war over that interpretation.
Yes, they do.
And
that's what, you know what I'm saying? Like you're saying like, oh, you just got to do it like this, but we're not talking about assembling a microwave. We're talking about the one thing that people all over the world forever have been fighting over is what you're talking about.
And maybe some interpretations are wrong.
And that's between y'all.
So here's another thing. So that's probably why I don't also prescribe to like saying one type of religious or I'm Catholic or Protestant or anything like that.
You can stick within fighting. Just within Christianity, and then we talk about this all the time. I find more animosity between two people who claim to be Christian than a Christian who claims and someone who isn't.
Yeah, I find that too in the church. Like I get more animosity from my Christian brothers and sisters who are very legalistic versus someone like Marcus who's more like kind of like he's cool with everything.
So for me, like in that time period while I was in college, like I also started listening to like Quran stories like on YouTube and stuff like that. And I thought about like the Buddhist way of life and stuff like that. So one thing that I realized and this is when I realized, okay, there is a God, but the religions are all telling the same story.
I think there's a truth to that. I think there's something about that.
It's the same. So it's different interpretations. Maybe depending on where you are at the world, you saw things a little bit differently. Right. Like maybe the ones who read the Quran and know the Prophet Muhammad, they may have never came across the Prophet Jesus or Jesus Christ the Messiah. So therefore they don't identify with that side. But if you're in North America and they're in Asia, how would you experience that?
Yep.
I know they weren't.
And they have missionaries and stuff like that too.
You know, geography, there might be two different guys that kind of went across and spread the same message.
But and keep in mind, there's literally like thousands of and some of them just didn't make it. It's like movies that ends up in the bargain bin. They just didn't, dang man, I wanted to worship grapefruit. You know what I mean? It just didn't cut it.
And you know what? All of that is possible.
Yeah. No, it's
so
true.
What I'm saying is, like through my life and through the readings and the knowledge that I've learned, whether it was in school, in home, in church or whatever, when I take it and I encompass it in myself, in my own heart, my own mind, in my spirit, I believe there is a God.
What?
I do believe there's real things in the Bible, but I also believe there's real things in the Quran. And if I were to speak to a Muslim here today, he'd probably be able to teach me 100 more things that I didn't know about the Quran.
So I
find similarities, and therefore I don't have to fight someone like in regards to the Christian stuff and whose interpretation is real. That's where the religion and the power play comes into play.
Yeah. But I think that's built into it, though.
I don't have to go into that power, or I don't have to convince you that the Bible is the word. If you can't see it, you can't see it. It's the word for me.
So here's the thing. So here's the beautiful part about that. Here's what I see. I see three guys who have found and are working out what works for them to work through this life. Are we agree with there?
Yeah, because I could see like what I've achieved with Christianity,
Bingo.
Other people may have achieved with
1,000%.
with some other, even with just going to a therapist or something.
Bingo. The challenge is, and where people get into, in my opinion, unnecessary conflict, because I consider Fern honestly my closest friend. I have two, and Fern's like my closest one. We talk like every day. Yeah. And you see where, dude, and I've seen him make transformation and so forth. So, but my point is that it seems like it only causes any turn of conflict when either one of us or anyone in this conversation wants to hold tight to their rules. But here's the contradiction. Here's the challenge, though. As a flexible guy, it's and I'm not saying you're not flexible, but I am definitely saying I know I went to Catholic school, all this stuff, Christian 4 times. The Bible and that belief, it is not flexible. It's not flexible. There's different interpretations, but it's very clear. Jesus is here. He's the only way. If you don't say Jesus, you ain't Christian, you're something else, right? Christian is like, you're the only way. We're all born in sin, right? Is there a Christianity that has and that's one of the big, I'm like, we're all born in sin. I saw a newborn baby yesterday. I'm like looking at him, like, he's born in sin? Like this little precious, you know what I mean?
But
like,
you don't understand the sin.
No, I do understand.
What do you understand of sin?
You tell me your version, I'll tell you if I'm
right.
right.
So the word sin actually derives from
missing the mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in archery.
Gotcha.
So if we're all born in sin, how I believe that is that you don't necessarily know the mark and therefore you're missing it.
And
Okay.
Can I explain? When you're done, I would
That's
like to.
that's
explain.
that.
Is that it? Oh,
Yeah, you could go
Okay,
from
go
there
ahead.
because
All right.
I just wanted to see when
Sure.
when he. I don't. There's a whole nother thing I'm gonna open up.
That's
but
fine.
Go ahead.
Go there. Okay. So basically, we're born in sin in that we all derived from Adam and Eve, who are sinners.
Got
right?
it. Because of the tree of knowledge, right?
Whether you want to call them Adam or Eve is not the point.
Right.
though.
Why
This is
would I
what-
call them that? That's in
this
the
is
book.
why.
Well, that's in the. But
I just
like,
want to explain
was
to you.
saying-
Yeah,
hold on,
go
hold on. I just want to explain to you how we got to that idea that babies are born in sin and what that actually means. So they're born in sin in that they inherited the sinful nature in their DNA from Adam, from their parents, right?
Okay.
Just like we inherit other features from our parents and parents. We inherited this innate desire to sin. To, if there's a rule, I want to break that rule. We just have that inherent desire.
Okay.
The shadow work people, they would call it the dark side, whatever. We all have that. The thing is, there's a difference between sinning and being a sinner. Two different things.
Okay.
Like a baby is a sinner, but he hasn't sinned yet because he doesn't have the consciousness of good and evil.
What age does that start at?
11. It depends on when you realize. It's very individual. It's very, hey, I understand that I shouldn't.
Because I want to be a dick and be like, oh, I would want to max that out as a kid.
Oh yeah, milk that.
So
Let me finish
Yeah,
it.
go
Okay.
ahead.
So we inherit the sinful nature from Adam and Eve when we're born, but we haven't sinned yet. So if we die, according to the Bible, you're not going to go to hell.
Yeah.
You inherited the sinful nature, but you haven't sinned yet because you don't have the knowledge of good and evil yet.
Okay.
When we're born again, now we're born into Christ.
Okay.
Right. So now
Or baptized, right? Baptized
in Christ, depending on.
Because I know they baptize babies. That's why I'm bringing that up to
Yes,
like. Okay.
Catholics do.
Yeah.
But there's, according to the Bible, New Testament, there's no need to baptize a baby for the forgiveness of their sins because they haven't sinned yet. And it's a conscious thing, right?
Yeah.
So when we're born in Christ, God does away with our sinful nature.
Okay.
He's not going to hold our sins up until like we were born, or like from when we started sinning to that point. He's going to do away with the old covenant, the old contract we had with Adam, and now we're in a new bloodline. We're under his son's bloodline.
Okay.
So we're just like, I could sin now, but God wouldn't view me as a sinner anymore. I could sin. I probably, I sin every day in my thoughts and my actions. Everyone sins,
Sure.
right?
You didn't bring Ruben a 0 calorie Gatorade. You brought him a water.
I fell short of the mark. And the reason I couldn't get it is because I was running late, so I fell short of the mark.
Yeah.
But God doesn't view me as a sinner. Like my identity is not a sinner.
Yep.
I sin. Now before, I could do all the good works that I wanted to do, but I was still considered a sinner because I was still under Adam.
Yeah.
Adam's bloodline. And then when we're baptized, we receive Christ. Now our identity before God, and we should receive that identity. That I've received that identity too, that I am now in Christ. I am not under Adam anymore. God doesn't see my sins were washed away by the blood. I'm under a new bloodline. That's why we have to be born again, like Jesus told Nicodemus.
Well, I just want to affirm everything you said, because you and we've known each other since 2016, and I got to say this. I'm a heathen, and I have no, I am. I'm going to go home and I'm going to smoke a bowl, and I'm going to drink a beer. I don't know if I'll drink a beer. I'm trying to take a break from that. But my point is that I'm not a bad person, but I just don't. But the reason why Fern's words stick with me is because I've seen the dude transform, and it's pretty fucking amazing. It is. Like he's I tell him, you're the only Christian dude, and hopefully I add two on there if we have these conversations, but you're the only Christian dude that he's genuine. Like, I've seen him go, and you weren't a bad person. We talk about it, but I would say this, but like, there were some selfish things going on, and dude, like, I've watched the guy turn his life around. So just in the category of, hey, someone found something that worked and that's amazing, I gotta say, like, you give credibility to what you say. It doesn't connect with me logically, no.
Sure.
I don't, the whole story, I've tried it so many times, dude. It's just, and then when I say that, by the way, I feel like this is like religious porn for Christians, because I know whenever someone says, "Oh, I just don't know," and doubt, there's always like someone wants to come out. Oh, no, man, let me just take you to my church.
It's juicy when Christians find somebody that isn't necessarily all the way converted.
It's like chumming the waters, chumming the. oh, what's that? You just murdered somebody, and you're a drug dealer, and you're, oh man, I used to, you know what I mean? It's just, but it's like, oh
but
yeah,
listen, this is the way of Christ.
Yeah,
walk with me.
Yeah,
But
and I'm not saying they're bad, because
we're always doing that, whether you're a Christian or not. I think that's a human trait.
It is.
Whatever it is we believe.
You got to eat at this restaurant that I ate at. You got to see this movie.
Yeah.
And that's where the sales thing comes in. Like, what I discovered with sales is that there's 3 forms of communication. It's like informative, to connect, and then to persuade. Anytime any human being is ever talking, they're either trying to inform you, connect with you, or persuade you of something.
Okay.
So, Christianity just happens, to fall into that, because so does everything else.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
A couple things. So with that, I mean, of course, every Christian finds that appetizing, though. So that's not even. I'm not even going to.
That was me trying to hide the fact that yes, it is appetizing, but it's also
because it validates them. It strengthens their identity. So, and I think a lot of Christians have identity crises that are worse than someone who doesn't believe in it, though. I do believe that.
Now, the reason I bring it up and the reason I don't bring it up is because I know, I'm solid on the fact that whether I convert you or not, is not what's going to make me righteous before God.
You did convert me, and then I came back.
Hey, that's on you. I must have did a terrible job.
Nope, you didn't. It was God. I'll tell you, and I will be clear on this.
You did well, because whatever you did at that time brought him through that time.
And maybe that's
life.
what he needed for that moment.
For that moment, exactly.
And he helped me in that moment too. Like, I was having a breakdown at Sunrun where we were working together.
Yeah.
I had a few breakdowns that he pulled me out of too. So,
I was giving you advice from the Satanic Bible.
Hey, it worked.
Wow.
Whatever it was. I don't know what it was.
You see how the Satanic Bible brought him closer to God?
Oh, nice. It says 1, 0, and negative.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, it's that yin and yang thing.
It is, man.
The evil and is good. And I mean, even Satan was an angel.
Well, no, and I think Satan's really... I've always rooted for the bad guy, even when I was a kid. When I used to watch the old Batman and Joker when they're live action, I always get pissed at the end. Yeah, I get pissed at the end because the Batman always got away.
I really didn't start rooting for the bad guy, the villains, until Dark Knight.
Oh man, yeah.
Okay.
But I will say this,
he was
though,
a great
man.
bad guy.
My biggest...
He made a lot of great points in that movie, though. By the way, the Joker.
Oh,
in the Dark Knight.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and you know what I love about him?
Very great points.
Honest. He's
so
honest.
Yeah.
He goes, I don't even know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? He's like, I don't even know.
Just a
but
dog
it's like,
chasing cars.
But if you look at Batman and Bruce Wayne's a douchebag. He is. He's like, oh, one fundraiser with me and my friends, and you'll never... Like, he plays like the image that I don't even think billionaires actually like. He plays like the negative stereotype of every billionaire. He's a douchebag. You know what I mean?
In this concept of Batman, because remember, this is Christopher Nolan's Batman.
That's fine. But you said Dark Knight, so I just wanted to...
Yeah.
But check this out. Remember, Bruce Wayne is his mask, in a sense.
Yes,
so
that's a good point.
So he has to be... He hates Bruce Wayne. He would love to be Batman 24/7. That's his mask.
That's his identity.
That's his identity. His real, he's
in the narrative of what society sees him as.
Because remember what Rachel told him? Hey, it's not what we are inside, but what we do that defines us.
She's talking about works, though. Yeah.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
But in the context of Gotham City and Batman, his identity is really Batman. He has to hide behind Bruce Wayne to protect Batman.
That's true. Because he's the hero they need, right?
Yeah, that's
he's
right.
I got you.
So like when he says stuff like that, he's just playing the role. Okay, good friend with me.
The role of the
I can see that.
billionaire playboy who's a douchebag.
Remember, he doesn't care about it.
Who drives a Lamborghini.
That makes sense because he cursed out his friends. They acted like he was drunk, told them to get all out and everything. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right. And as Batman, it's cool because he doesn't talk a lot. Here's what's dope about Batman. There's actually a at the end, you buy Blu-rays, so you probably know about this. At the end of Dark Knight, the Blu-ray, whatever, there's a documentary with psychiatrists and psychologists breaking down Batman psychology.
No way.
I didn't see that.
Bro, and this changed my life. It said, what is Batman's superpower? Because Superman has this mutant power. Everyone basically has a mutant power. Batman doesn't have a superpower. His superpower is his self-discipline. He doesn't use guns, and he doesn't... And this is where you got to give fiction a little bit of leeway here. He doesn't kill anybody. Because in real life, if you drop someone off a building, you can accidentally kill him, whatever.
No,
but he doesn't kill people, right? And he wants to.
Kill him. The fall killed him.
Exactly. But in the movies, he doesn't kill anyone. He doesn't shoot anybody with guns. None of that. He doesn't do the Rambo thing, right? Yeah. It's all discipline. Like from his workouts to his training, he always picks the harder way. And you have his supporting characters telling him that, hey, you don't have to pick the harder way. He's like, no, I got to pick the harder way. And that is pretty impressive because...
now that you say that, I need to see that documentary part because I definitely understand it because that's what they talked about in Batman Begins. The whole going to what's it called?
Yeah, like going up to
ninjas?
the Himalayas or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where I'm saying Himalayas, but I don't know.
I forget what that society was called.
Yeah.
But that was the whole part of where he kind of learned that discipline.
Yep. And there's actually a slice of psychology. It's called self-regulation. I bought a book, super technical. I was like, okay, this is over my head. But it's like self-regulation, which is the concept of self-discipline. And that's where I learned that self-discipline is, they believe it's actually a fuel source. It's not something.
Who's they?
A psychologist.
Oh,
like,
okay.
right? Like,
no, I would agree with that.
Yeah. No, I that made so much. If you think of self-discipline as a fuel source versus it's a thing that should always be on and why don't I have it right now? You're screwing yourself up. Because if you start a diet, just keep it simple. You have more discipline at the beginning of the day to honor the rules that you made for yourself. But at the end of the day, when you're tired, that diet goes out the window. And most people, you know what I'm saying? Just use that one example.
Right.
Yeah. But that's a lot of stuff where it's like, I'm hungry, angry, tired. It's something like, you know what I mean? So anyway.
It's funny because my mom used to say I need more discipline. And now as a man, I tell myself that that's one of the things I actually pray for on a regular basis.
Yeah, me too.
Is more self-discipline.
Yeah.
This is where, dude, I do think Christianity, the way you explain it, makes a lot of sense and very powerful in a very practical way. The whole concept of identity.
Okay.
And it's like what I know of a lot of traditional Christianity is like suppressing something versus who do I identify as?
Right.
When you have a different identity, it's like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So like if I have a lustful desire to see a hot girl and I'm like I was looking at Ruben's paintings and I was like, this girl's gorgeous. Like,
yeah.
And I'm looking at her, I'm like, I know I shouldn't be gawking at this girl. It's probably wrong. It's probably a sin. I can say, okay, I sinned, but I don't want to do that. The good I want to do, I don't do. But the bad that I don't want to do, this I keep on doing, said Paul in his letters. And he said, what a wretched man I am. Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ, my Lord, who rescues me from this body of death. So I can disassociate my sin from my identity. Before, my sin was my identity. Before, everything I did was who I was. Now I can disassociate what I do from who I believe I am, before God at least. Someone else might say, hey, he's a jerk for that. I'm never talking to him again. He's this. Fine, like that's it. But before God, I know he will never disassociate himself from me.
That's where I disconnect from, because that's where the mechanics work differently for one person from another, and that's where the Satanic Bible made a whole lot of sense. Because the Satanic Bible, basically, it's pretty short philosophy. I mean, it's basically like, look, you're a human being. Mm-hmm. You have these urges. They're natural. And one thing that I think is very interesting, and this is why I'd like you to read it. If I'm not trying to pour shit on you, but I'd like you to give it a check, right?
I might watch a YouTube summary.
Yeah,
no, that's why they're natural. We got them from Adam, but that's why Christ. It wasn't fair that here's the thing. Here's how I see it. It wasn't
sins of
fair.
Your father.
Yeah, that was not fair to the son. That was part of the curse that God put on.
But humanity. I don't think of it as a curse.
I know. Hold on. That was it was unfair. It was unfair for me to receive the sinful nature from my father, which is why it's just as unfair for me to receive the perfect righteousness of Christ with being who I am.
But what I hear when you say that is the ingredient. If we were making a soup, it's the ingredients of guilt, and that's what I don't miss that about Christianity.
But there's no guilt anymore because he took my guilt.
But I never had. But what if you don't have to have it in the first place?
That's what makes
I don't know how to get there.
I don't know because you can't in the narrative.
For me, I can't. Let me bring us there.
Go ahead. Because here's my.
Are you starting a new religion right now? That was a
no.
move.
Well, here's my guy. I could never have gotten to that place of no guilt without knowing that there was like a righteous, solid biblical foundation for me to not feel guilty.
Let's be specific though. What's wrong with that beautiful woman in that painting?
No, it's
what's
what
wrong
he's
with
saying. What he's saying is the gawking, and when he sees her, the thoughts in his mind.
What if okay, I'm gonna take a leap of faith here and say the thoughts were, man, she's beautiful. What would sex? And let's not even make it pornographic. Let's not even make it graphic. Man, she's beautiful. Yeah, making love to her would probably be amazing. What's wrong with that?
Now, here's the thing. We don't even know where that line blurs, where it's like, not sinful, not sinful, not sinful. I don't even know where that line blurs.
Okay, that's fair. So how do you know what sin is, or et cetera?
You know because his conscience tells him
Sure.
when he's crossing the line.
Okay. Okay. I give you that.
And I've always
I get
had
that.
an oversensitive conscience. Like there's people who I know I was like that. I always had an I think because of the original brand of Christianity that I was around, created this false sense of guilt on everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed a foundation, a biblical, righteous foundation for not being guilty anymore, and I found it in Christ. Because that was my guilt.
But I would say that's the norm. So you had to find it within but I would say the whole category of Christianity at some level, the common denominator, because it's original sin, is guilt.
This is where I'm going to pick off between the guilt and everything like that. So you were saying that in the Satanic Bible, what he said was that basically like you're having all these urges, but it's human, that's natural, you're fine.
Yeah, and one quick thing I'll add to that is that really what he wasn't teaching anything to me. It was more like he was saying stuff, and I was like, yes.
I agree with that.
So it's like when I was 8,
you resonated with it.
Growing up in New Orleans, 8-year-old kid on Canal, on Bourbon Street, working in the walking in the plaza or whatever. I forget the name of it. They have Playboy magazines, just the cover, unframed. And I remember my whole being was like electrified and everything. Yeah, and I think the worst thing that could have happened to me in that moment was someone saying, that's bad, or you shouldn't be looking at that. Because I think Playboy is an amazing innovation, and I think it's awesome. In fact, you want to hear something funny? And we may need to take this out. Playboy back in the day was really a social commentary. The last interview with Martin Luther King before he was assassinated was in Playboy. I gave it to Dr. Doris. As a gift. Yeah, it was a classic Playboy magazine I got it was a prop in a movie that I got. So I'm just saying, like, so if we just cut it out, it's like, so Martin Luther King was in Playboy, by the way.
So this is a couple of things I wanted to piggyback off. Just off of how you were thinking about, like, Born in Sin.
Yeah.
How he brought that and broke down that story between Adam and Eve. And then how you're saying that in the Satanic Bible, it was human nature. So here's how I'm going to tie it, right? So it is human nature to have those thoughts. It is only human nature because of that knowledge from the apple tree and the apple that he bit.
If you believe that.
The concept of it, right?
Yeah.
So this is the concept of biting the apple and eating the tree is the tree of knowledge.
Knowledge of good and evil.
Knowledge of good and evil. And in that knowledge of good and evil, I believe, is self-consciousness. This is where he was talking about a baby doesn't really know when they sin because they're not necessarily conscious of self.
Okay.
If you were a human being, if you were human before the being part, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the nature before the apple, right? You would not be conscious of yourself. Like Adam and Eve, they were conscious of their nakedness after they bit the apple. But if you look at another animal and what a dog does, right? A dog eats off the ground. He licks another's butt. He barks when it's a time to be calm.
I think I've done all those things.
It's listen.
Yeah.
But this is how an animal behaves who has no self-conscious. And this is in every animal as they go. Whatever they do because that is their state of being. Mm-hmm. They eat when they're hungry. They devour when it's time to devour. They run when it's time to run. They fight when it's time to fight.
Okay.
And they don't have to think about it, nor do they reflect on it afterwards.
100%.
Right?
Yep. Okay. I watch you.
You eat the apple, and now you have the knowledge of good and evil, which also gives you self-conscious, which gives you the ability to foresee and to reflect. And that is what makes man the one animal that's able to rule over the world and have dominion.
100%.
Is because now we have consciousness, and now we can foresee and we can reflect. And because of that, that's where the guiltness of the sinning comes into play. So you're right. You shouldn't feel guilty for your urges and what you were. And if you were a dog, you wouldn't. Yeah. You'd hump the dog on sight when you see her because that's what dogs do. That's the animal instinct in you.
Sure.
But because you are conscious, that is what makes you different. And it's not bad that you have those urges. But just like they say cleanliness is close to godliness, as man, we are born as men. The strive is to get as close to godliness or walk like Jesus did in his life. I wouldn't necessarily say Jesus, but you want to become the God that's in you.
Why?
Do you see a better version of yourself in your mind?
It's funny you asked that. You know, so for my whole life, you would have asked me 2 years ago or a year ago, I'd be absolutely. But it's funny, man, because, and I hate that we're running out of time here, because you've seen The Big Lebowski, right? You know that movie?
Yeah.
You've seen The Big Lebowski? Okay.
Yeah.
Big Lebowski's about a bum, basically. He's a guy, he's a metaphor, in my opinion, for basically, the great resignation that's going on now, right? With COVID and everything. People are like, why am I doing this? Why am I working so hard? I just want to enjoy my life more, right? So these people who are ambitious in their jobs, they quit and now they're doing nothing, right? So I'm answering your question. You said, do you see a better version of yourself? Context is everything. So I'm American, I'm in the West, and we measure things on, are you achieving, producing, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And now, ironically, while I feel like those things are easier and easier because I'm figuring stuff out, marketing, I'm good, bro. Like walking around in torn jeans and just being, because ambition in and of itself, I guess they have a word for it now. They're calling it hustle culture. Mm-hmm. That's a thing. And you see what I'm saying? So when my definition of better of myself, I don't even know what that is, because my whole life has been chasing some sort of goal.
And I feel you, because I've always kind of chased that same goal.
Yeah.
I still kind of chase
Sure.
that goal.
I mean, this was a goal.
In the material aspects.
Yeah, because
even in the non-material, like for me,
because like the way he reached that point was because, like, your earlier self could have had a goal to be your present self. Like, this could have been the better me.
Maybe. Yeah.
Is this a better you than you were?
As far as being at peace with myself, 100%.
Right. So like, I think
100%.
That's one piece.
Yeah.
Right,
But
so
I didn't get that from following Jesus, though.
Or God. But he's just saying you want to be a better man.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
that's
yes,
what I'm
yes,
saying.
yes,
That's
okay.
why I'm not trying to per se towards walk like Jesus, but be.
Yes.
So when I say God, I mean the God of yourself. I'm not trying to relate that to any religion.
Sure.
I'm relating that to the higher being that you imagine yourself of being.
So I agree with you. And what I'm hearing is, are we here to evolve? And a big part of me says, yes, we are. We're here to be better. But here's the thing, though.
What is the better?
Christianity to me is about, has a lot of the specifics, because it's very clear.
And that's I didn't
right, like
I said at the beginning.
Peace, patience.
Well, no,
the fruit of it's very specific.
Christianity. It boils down to all those guys that want to recruit you. Once you cut to the core of it, you're either with us or not. If you don't accept this, you're going to hell. I use the word trigger and I cringe when I hear that because it's so overused. But when I was like, yeah, man, Fern converted me, didn't go, hey, man, that wasn't on me. Like that. But seriously, though, I get that a lot straight up. And it's like, there's a lot of people who are assholes that happen to be Christians. Straight up. And they do that. Like, if it doesn't go their way, they weaponize their knowledge of Christianity against you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they do that.
Now,
hey, man.
That comes into the religion and the power play. But when he's saying, hey, that wasn't me.
Well, he's my boy, so I don't really give a shit.
I just don't want to take credit for that. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to take credit.
Here's the thing. You know better not to take credit for that.
Like,
and the reason why he knows is because of his experience with God.
100%.
Now, and that's why he knows not to take credit for it. And likewise, I would probably say the same thing. Just like, so, yeah, he just knows not to take the credit for it. Mm-hmm. Not everybody knows not to take the credit. If someone were to take credit for it, then that's ego. And if your ego's taking credit for it, then you're not as close to the godliness that you should be aspiring to.
But I think you just described, in my opinion, the book. See, here's the thing, man. Christianity, if it's really all is cracked up to be as it is, it really wouldn't have to try hard to have everyone converted. I want to finish this thought because I want to say this. Like,
I love his perspective. How would I market Christianity, the Bible, Jesus? I love when you go into these. These are fascinating.
Well, because the reality of it is that the things they promise are amazing. All the answers are in one book. Right? Different interpretations, but the general thing is everything's in this book, right? Yep. It's like there's one dude, there's one way, all you got to do is this, and you get the gift of the Holy Spirit, and there's some, like, dude, the promise of this product and service is amazing. But I got to say this, here's the last thing I'll say, what I really realized in the last couple of years of what Christianity is and really what religion is, in my opinion, it's a social club. It's not because if it was what they talk about, people would be walking on waters. People would be because they left and there's a whole other podcast, unfortunately, but there's a whole other episode. But I'm saying, like, people would be like walking around like fucking Harry Potter with magician stuff. They would.
So here's the thing. So, and it's funny because you're right. Is it a social club? Fine.
It's 100.
We could. I'm not gonna say you're right I would call it a religion because that's what it is. But in a religion is what? Probably an extension of a social club. Depending on how it's people who all derive and have similar interests, similar beliefs, and in that sense, yes. But if you were to take the Bible and if you read it as a book instead of reading it the way that your mind is reading it, then I think you'd see everything that they're trying to describe it as.
But there's a lot of stuff in there that's confused. But I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead, bro. Go.
So I was going to tie into it.
Okay.
Like you said, you like Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Off the record. So what I would say is, if you heard his, because Jordan Peterson would say I think even when he first started doing YouTube or whatever, he was maybe not an atheist, but he was like yourself. He didn't believe in the Bible or that there was one God or whatever.
Sure.
But after he read the Bible and he looked at it in the aspect of a psychologist, and what he was trying to find was, how is it that this story that stood the test of time.
It has stood the test of time.
These books and these stories, what are the underlying factors and how does that relate to human nature and human behavior?
Right.
And he does break down there's like 19 lectures. They're each like an hour to 2 hours long.
20 hours on this he spends?
Bro.
Okay.
And more than that, because they're like 2 hours. Some of them are 2 hours long.
Yeah.
And I've listened to them like throughout these past couple times. I'm on like the last few. But he breaks it down where you could look at it without the lens of a Christian on it, if you wanted to do it that way.
I'd be totally open to listen to it.
With the Christian eye, you would look at it without the Christian eye. But you will see the underlying factors of what makes us human. And so that's why when you said this, the Satanic Bible, low key, from what you said, says what the Holy Bible says. He just said it in a different way.
Same thing the psychologists are saying.
It cuts out. And here's the thing: in order
he
to make
might have cut out the fluff. And the metaphors.
No, I was saying it cut out the legs underneath the argument for Christianity. I think he does it very effectively. But here's the thing: I'd love to hear a counterpoint. But someone, I'm sorry, I'm talking off the mic. You'd have to read it. And I don't know too many Christians who would read that. Just hearing the word. By the way, when I brought it up to Barnes & Noble desk, because I didn't get it on Amazon the first time, the dude did give me a dirty look.
No, because he's also thinking, why do you want this book? Who are you? Type stuff.
Yeah.
Now,
and then, you know what I mean?
And that, I mean...
He thought he knew your identity by the book you're buying.
And what if it was? You know what I mean? But my point is, if you read it, it's real clean. It's real. There's no. And this is what I love about it. I don't think there's a whole lot of need for interpretation because it's a dude talking. He's like, this is what it is. Like, it's not vague. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of symbolism in the Bible, but. Yeah.
But that's
we gotta do that next one.
That's what That's what might make his book a fault.
That's me my homework.
I feel like
that would make his book a what?
There might be faults in there without having all the extra, the symbolism, the metaphors, that's what makes literature, is having all those things in a book. Here's
what we're gonna do. I'm gonna bring a copy next time, and I have certain parts highlighted. I'm gonna read certain parts as an argument. We'll just talk about it.
Okay,
I'm good with that.
Sounds good to me.
All right,
fascinating.
I'm gonna do some homework on it just so I'm prepped.
Oh yeah, dude, Anton LaVey is the dude's name.
Yeah.
But also piggybacking off that, if you've recently read the Bible, you said Genesis, bro, listen to just lecture 1 or 2 of Jordan Peterson and the way he breaks it down. Like, even for me, hearing it, I was like, oh wow, this guy's smart, because he was able to break it down in a way where we're not talking about religion. We're talking about, as a human being, how my mind works and what this story is saying. Let's find some understanding. And it was great.
I'm totally down to check.
And not to beat a dead horse, just because it seems like that's the one thing that you're really hung up on. Like, this one thing we don't know.
What's that?
Why do bad things happen to good people?
That's not the only thing.
I know.
There's like 4 major things. But
okay,
go ahead.
That's one of the main pillars of the 4 pillars, right?
Okay.
Science has, I think we had this conversation the other day, science has just as many or more things that we just don't know, but we don't doubt the science. Like, I don't doubt astronomy just because there's things I don't know about.
Dude, this is where I get heated, because it's not an apple. That's not an apples and
I'm not
apples
trying to beat a
conversation.
dead horse. That's how I wrap my. Like,
no, but that's good though. But that's not. Here's the thing. Everything we say.
I'm not saying that to convince you. Like, so you don't. it's fine. Like, you can come back with it's cool, but I don't want you to think I'm trying to convince you of that.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't understand what you're saying.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is in science, what pushes science forward, scientific thought forward in all schools of science is like, hey, there's this thing I don't know about.
Yes.
I want to learn more about it.
Yes.
Right? But
and they make mistakes and fumble through and they discover.
And just because they don't know where the universe came from, I can't dismiss everything else that they do know about astronomy, like the Hubble telescope and everything that they see out there and the distances and time and space and dark matter. I believe all of that. I'm not going to say, hey, they didn't tell me where the universe came from.
Well, wait, I just want, because I have
or something even smaller than that. Like, hey, they haven't told me what molecules make up. They haven't figured out the graviton. They haven't isolated the graviton, so I'm going to throw out everything else.
Is the Bible a perfectly complete book?
Yes.
I would say it's not.
Oh. To be continued. God damn, I didn't expect that.
Can we edit that? My church people are going to crucify me.
That's a good way to end it.